Hello and welcome to the evolution of horror. This week, it's Scream 6 week. Of course, Scream 6, the latest movie in the beloved slasher franchise, was released in cinemas around the world this weekend. So I thought I'd take the chance to share with you here on the Evolution of Horror podcast feed an episode of another podcast that I do, the Hello Sidney podcast. For those of you who don't know, Hello Sidney is a limited podcast series that deep dives into every single Scream movie in the franchise. I produce and host this show with friends of the pod, Anna Bogutskaya and Louise Blaine. Last year, we launched the podcast to coincide with Scream 5, and we covered all 5 Scream movies to date. And this year, we've resurrected Hello Sidney to discuss and cover Scream 6. So I thought I would drop that latest episode on this Evolution of Horror feed so you could all listen to our spoilerific discussion of Scream 6. And if you're a newcomer to the Hello Sidney podcast, I will link to the podcast feed in the show notes. Go and check it out, subscribe, give us a little review, and listen to our back catalogue in which Louise and Anna and I deep dive into all of the Scream films up until this point. But for now, please enjoy our deep dive discussion of Scream 6.
Hello?
Have you guys noticed how this podcast started as a limited series and now it just keeps coming back with new episodes?
Wait, does that mean we're part of a franchise now?
Well, that is the way most things tend to go nowadays.
If that's true, then the Hello Sidney IP is bigger than we are. That means any of us could be expendable.
Mike, is that a threat? Are you planning on replacing one of us?
Don't look at me. I would never be so ruthless. Anna, on the other hand...
Excuse me? Are you accusing me of being a ruthless killer?
Well, you have described yourself as the Gale Weathers of this podcast, Anna.
You're the one who called us expendable.
Okay, for all I know, you two could be working together.
If anyone's working together as a pair, it's you two. Didn't I overhear you guys making dinner plans without me?
Guys, this is ridiculous. Nothing is going to happen to us. Our jobs are safe. We've all done this podcast since the very beginning.
She's right. We're legacy podcast hosts. Legacy characters are always safe, right? Oh, one sec. Oh, can I help you?
Hello, Sidney. Remember me?
Welcome to Hello Sidney, a limited podcast series supported by Paramount that cuts deep into one of the most iconic horror franchises. I'm Anna Bogutskaya, a writer and broadcaster, and I'm joined by my co-host, journalist and broadcaster Louise Blaine.
Hello.
And producer and podcaster Mike Munzer.
Hello.
Last week, we cast our predictions for Scream 6, and now all 3 of us have seen the film and we're ready to dive deep into it.
I'm so excited. Let's begin our discussion of Scream 6.
Please help us. Just down here. What's going on?
Lying here, girl. You got a problem here, guy?
So, for listeners, a word of warning. The first part of our conversation will be entirely spoiler-free. We'll talk about our first impressions of Scream 6, but we won't go anything that could be considered spoilerific. You'll also hear some of my conversations with the cast and the directors of Scream 6, and those interviews are also spoiler-free, so you can enjoy them before you've seen the film. But after that, it'll be all spoilers.
All bets are off.
All the time. So I guess the first question I have to ask you guys, because we saw it separately. I saw it a full 24 hours ahead of you and kept my mouth shut like a good girl.
You did so well.
Thank you very much.
We finished recording our predictions episode last week, and then you had to head straight to the screening, didn't you? And you saw it immediately. Louise and I saw it 24 hours after you. And yeah, you were very good not to give away anything.
Thank you very much. I'm here for the praise. What were your first impressions of Scream 6?
I had an absolute blast with it. Last year, I think I felt like that was the only movie that Scream 5 could have been. And it had a lot to do. It had a lot of work to do. It had a lot of characters to introduce. It had a lot of heavy lifting to do and to reintroduce the franchise with a whole new theme. Scream 6 didn't really have to do that. We had our set of characters. We took them to a new location, but then it just had an absolute blast with it. I will say I was happily surprised by just how gory it is.
Yes.
It is
Yes.
brutal, guys.
Yeah, I loved it too. I think I enjoyed it more than Scream 5 last year, and I had a great time with Scream 5. And like you said, Louise, just to echo everything you said, Scream 5 was exactly what it needed to be for us fans. It brought us back into the world, a kind of safe Force Awakens-esque, safe return to the franchise that you love, giving you a lot of nostalgic beats. We were back in Woodsboro. We had an opening scene that kind of mirrored Drew Barrymore's scene. We had a final act in Stu's kitchen that kind of, mirrored the final act of Scream 1, and it was all very safe and fun. This movie got to kind of chuck out the rulebook a little bit, right, and have some fun. We're in a new setting, new characters, and it's scary and it's brutal. And I would say that for me, it's maybe the most scary Scream film since Scream 2, maybe, which I really, really loved. So I had a great time.
I had a great time too, and my expectations were kind of high because we'd hyped ourselves up so much.
Into a frenzy.
I was like, I'm here for a good time. I need to find a perfect seat in this room. I'm here with my little notebook. I am here for it. I had a great time. I was surprised that there was not as much humor as in Scream 5. There was double the tension. So I don't find it scary per se, but I was incredibly tense. I found myself leaning forward in my seat a few times. I genuinely was looking at everyone with suspicion. I kept trying to solve the mystery in my head, and I was thinking about everything that we had just discussed. And it was, to echo what Louise was saying, quite graphic, very gory, I think much more violent than Scream 5. And because of the returning characters as well, I had so much more compassion for them. Like, I really felt for them because the labor of having to introduce them and get us to care in one movie was already done. So now we could just spend more time with them and actually root for them to survive.
There was that real sense of peril. Like,
yes.
I was, I was actually gripping, I think, Mike, maybe you noticed at one point, I had my hands up and I was kind of gripping the air because there was a relentlessness, which we saw from the trailer, and I really hoped would go into the movie itself, and boy did it go into the movie. I mean, it felt unstoppable at certain points.
Yes.
And Ghostface felt like a genuine threat, and especially, as you're saying, for those characters, we cared. We actually care.
This is what the Scream films get right over and over again that so many other slasher franchises get wrong, and you're absolutely right. Like, in this film, I wasn't expecting to care as much about these main characters as I did. And yeah, Scream 5 did a good job of introducing them, but this film made me actually really care about them, and that is just what adds to the peril, to the tension, and this movie had that in spades because you care about who's going to live and who's going to die, and also you don't trust the film enough to know whether they're going to live or die, right? I mean, we'll go through our predictions later, but obviously last week we predicted that so many people might die, and so I was on the edge of my seat throughout this whole film, not knowing who was going to survive. Yeah.
And I was wondering, what did you guys make of the big move to New York City? Because we were trepidatious about it last episode, because usually it doesn't signal anything good for a horror franchise to move to outside of their usual location, and especially when they go to Manhattan. So how did New York work for Scream?
I thought it worked really well. It was kind of what we expected, actually, in that it wasn't like the series had jumped the shark or had gone really silly. It was more that it was showing the peril of what could happen when a killer is hiding in plain sight, I think. This feeling that being in a city like New York can be quite a cold, dangerous environment, in that something could be happening on the middle of a subway train, for example, as the teaser suggests, or in the middle of a kind of a shop, a bodega or whatever, that, things could happen in public and you still wouldn't be safe, and that nobody would care, potentially. And so I think the New York setting did a good job of bringing about that, a different kind of peril to the type that you get if you're on your own in a house in the middle of the woods. Do you know what I mean?
It's the nobody would care thing that really came through for me. Because we do see hints of this in the trailer for Scream 6 already, but using all of these, these very heavily populated settings like the New York subway system, and just being surrounded by people at all times, that not being equivalent to being safe is really chilling. And especially, considering that we live in, well, Louise, you live in Glasgow, still a big city.
We have a tiny subway.
Yeah, you have a very efficient subway. And me living in London, and Mike, you've now moved out of London, but you know exactly what it's like. The sense of dread that can exist even when you're surrounded by people, surrounded by cameras who are watching you, surrounded by, figures of authority as well. Supposedly that would make you feel a lot safer, but it still really managed to instill that sense of if someone wants to hurt you, they still can, and actually not a single soul would try to help you.
It reminds me a lot of one of my favourite scenes in the franchise, which is Scream 2, opening scene, where you've got Jada Pinkett Smith being stabbed to death in the middle of a busy cinema, and no one is there to help her, no one is saving her, people are cheering, people think it's a joke, and it's quite a chilling scene. And there are some other scenes like that in Scream 2, like where they think they're safe in the back of a cop car, and then it turns out they're not. And this movie had that same sense of peril, I think. It had that same kind of vibe, and I love that vibe. You know, there's something very scary about it.
I also think for the first time, that exact vibe left the cinema with me. Now, I've not normally felt, I watch a Scream movie and then I am finished with the Scream movie and I'm happy about watching a Scream movie. Straight after we saw it, I got onto the tube and a man with a hood up turned very slowly towards me. and I had the sense of, oh, I'm in a busy city. And I think that's the first time that, in 6 movies that I have ever felt at all unsafe. Because normally it's a ghost story movie or a folk horror movie that will instill that sense of dread. A Scream movie managed to follow me out of the cinema and into the tube train. And even then I got onto the tube and I was texting you guys because I desperately got onto the Wi-Fi. And because there was a category something at zone 6 and I'm going, what does that mean?
Yeah, what does that mean?
Bad? Is that because I think anytime something can instill that sense of dread and relentlessness, and even after has it technically been put to bed, it's still not put to bed. A city it cannot sleep. It's not, the entire idea of that setting means that fear is just not going anywhere. And I really felt that this time.
What do you think of the directors, Matt Bettinelli, Olpin and Tyler Gillett in this movie? They're back, they did Scream 5. We've talked about what a genius Wes Craven was and how effectively he directed parts 1 to 4. What do you think of these two and the job they did directing this movie?
Well, I think one of the biggest things, one of the biggest differences I've noticed from Scream 5 to Scream 6 is the size of the set pieces.
Yeah.
And they mentioned this as well when I spoke to them briefly. It's that there's a bigger playground. So one of the other things that New York offers the film and them as well is a larger playground, and that means more ambitious, more violent set pieces. It's very different chasing someone around the house, which is something we've seen a lot, than chasing someone or stabbing someone or even trying to in a busy, heaving New York subway, or trying to do that in a kind of a giant layer like the one we were seeing in the trailer, or even like a glitzy, rich apartment on the Upper East Side. So like just all of these different scenarios, a dorm room, a subway, a rich apartment, an underground layer, police stations. There's just so much more to play around with that's not just the familiar streets or the familiar 1 or 2 houses. So I think Scream 5 was playing a lot into the images of Woodsboro as a location, and those familiar houses, even those living rooms being kind of recycled and updated for a newer generation. And here, suddenly, you literally don't know which way to look because there's something happening in every corner of the frame.
And we felt quite at home in Woodsboro by the end of it because we were going literally back to the same house at the end of Scream 5. We know that every room has one door, but then there's inexplicably, maybe Americans can explain, there's another door leaving that same room. But that's not the case in these. There's a sort of open plan area, but then there are very enclosed apartments, and playing with that verticality. So yes. There's a claustrophobia to such a big space.
I think that's what's really clever about it, isn't it? Is that they managed to pull off a sense of claustrophobia and a kind of agoraphobia almost. Playing with like giant public spaces and tiny apartments or packed little subway trains. And yeah, you're right. As opposed to the big, spacious, gorgeous houses of Woodsboro in the middle of nowhere, they got to have a lot of fun with different types of geography in this movie, different types of set pieces, big and small. You just felt like they as directors, they must have had so much fun, I think. And it's got that nerdy Scream thing as well. These two directors are very good at dropping in references to other horror movies, either visual nods or script nods, other horror movies or other Scream movies. There are constantly little Easter eggs that nerds like us can spot and celebrate, right?
There's so many. I mean, obviously the most obvious one that we spoke a little bit about in the previous episode is Samara Weaving, a living, breathing Easter egg, because obviously Matt and Tyler had directed her in Ready or Not. So this is a reunion of sorts. And there is a little bride, someone dressed up as the bride in Ready or Not in the subway scene too.
Can I just say as well, you know, we won't talk about Samara Weaving's role in this film yet till later, but what an actress. Like, I just want to see her in more films. I think she's so brilliant. She's got amazing comic timing. She's brilliant dramatically. Like, I think she needs to be a bigger deal than she is, you know? Yeah.
And, you know, we've mentioned how we've all sort of felt more for the returning characters who, you know, the core four, Tara, Sam, Mindy and Chad. So how do you think their dynamic has changed from one movie to another?
I think they've just fallen into a groove, which is nice. They have fallen into a friendship group. And I think that's what we do with them when we watched them last time. And it's what we do more with them this time, because we see them spending time together. It's very effortlessly handled, shall we say, their move. And I think they even talk about their own relationships, which I think then cements our relationship with them, because it's not a spoiler to say that, like, we're friends, you know, there's a closeness there. So I think it actually definitely handles the trip into a sequel without it feeling, you see enough niceness, I think, between them to still relate.
I think like what is lovely, again, it's something we've talked about a lot about the Scream movies, is that rather than the killer being the only through line, our main characters are the through line in this franchise, and we already have a sense of history between these four, and we've only seen them in one movie, but there is that real sense of closeness and history. They've been through something together, all of them, and you feel that connection. You know, obviously, as we know, Nev Campbell wasn't coming back for this one, David Arquette isn't around, so we don't have that same returning group of characters in the same way, but these four provide that idea of closeness, of a shared history, almost nostalgia, even though that film was only a year ago. But I think you really feel that between them in this movie, don't you? Yeah, absolutely.
You know, nothing bonds you as much as surviving a massacre.
They're all pincushions together, that lot, aren't they? That's the thing.
And we get bonus pincushion Kirby from 10 years ago.
That's true, the big returning legacy character. The final girl, well, the secret final girl from Scream 4, Kirby Reed, returns here.
Yeah, let's not say too much about Kirby.
I don't think we can.
There's a question mark hanging over her role in this, right? But all I will just say is what a joy to see Hayden Panettiere back on screen. Kirby, a fan favourite character. It's awesome. Like, it didn't disappoint me seeing her. I was like, I loved every moment that she was on screen.
Yeah, I beamed. Absolutely beamed when she was like, oh, there she is, brilliant, done, tick, this movie's for me.
Apparently a lot of people didn't like Kirby's hair in Scream 4, the kind of like short, cool. I thought she looked amazing.
She looked amazing in that movie.
She looked amazing then, she looks amazing now.
Absolutely she does.
People need to simmer down about people's hairs.
I had no idea there was such an issue with Kirby's hair.
Sexy leather jacket.
Yeah,
what's wrong with that?
She was like the sexiest nerd ever.
She was
awesome. Yeah,
exactly.
Anyway, she's just as brilliant, just as cool, just as hot in this movie. Love her. She's great.
And she clearly loves the franchise so much that really, really came across, and you can hear her tell us about that in the interview I did with her.
I love that, because I love the fact that, you know, Scream fans are so vocal, and people have been talking about how much they love Kirby since Scream 4 in 2011, right? So Hayden Panettiere must, I guess, know that, right? And really feel that love from the fans.
Is there anything else we can talk about before we go into spoiler territory?
Shall we? I know this is always a difficult thing to do, but where would it rank for you among the Screams? How would you rank your Scream films?
Oh no.
Oh dear.
Okay.
Shall I start? Because I think I know where I'm putting this right now. Now, the problem is that I'm such a fan of this franchise that I come out of every Scream going, I love it. It's one of my favourites. But this is where I'm currently at, right? I would say, obviously, Scream from 1996, favourite. Scream 2 from 1997 is second favourite. I think I would put this movie next.
Ooh.
I think I would go third favourite, Scream 6. Just beneath it, Scream 4, because I love Emma Roberts. Just beneath that, these are all really close in the middle, Scream 5 from last year. And then a little bit more of a gap, and Scream 3 at the bottom. So I think I would go 1, 2, 6, 4, 5, 3. I think that's how I would go. What about you guys?
I have exactly the same ranking.
Oh,
hey, there you go.
Like exactly the same ranking.
Excellent.
I have a
All
different
right.
one.
Good.
We're on the same page. Go on, Anna.
So obviously number 1, 2,
Yeah.
and this undisputed.
Yeah.
Then 4,
Yeah.
because I love OG Kirby. I
Yeah.
love Emma Roberts. Then 6,
Yeah.
and then 5, and then a long time after that, but not as much as you, Mike.
Yeah.
Number 3.
Yeah. I think that's, yeah.
Yeah.
So you've got the Kevin Williamson, Wes Craven trilogy at the top. 1,
Yes, I
2,
do.
and 4.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's fair. For me, 4, 5, and 6, they're all so close together. Like, I kind of really enjoy all of them, you know?
They're
Yeah.
jostling for position. You've
Yeah.
got, someone tossing obstacles in front of them while they all run in a race.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, maybe that's all we should say for now, spoiler free.
I think that's it.
Yes.
I mean, anyone who's even remotely interested in a Scream movie, so obviously you are because you're listening to this, Scream 6 is out in cinemas in the UK from Friday the 10th of March. And we can't encourage you highly enough to go see it in the cinema.
Yes. Oh, what a fun movie to see with a crowd. Definitely
Yes.
see it in the cinema. Yeah. Yeah.
I want to see it. I now want to see it in 3D and 4DX. I am willing to sit and be
I
stabbed
want to
in
see
my
it in
seat.
4DX
Yeah.
after all your talk of being stabbed while you're watching people get stabbed.
There's a lot of stabbing, so I want that. Yeah.
I wonder if it will also rumble when the subway rumbles.
Cool. So should we have a little listen to Anna's interview? You got to go and chat to some of the cast and directors, right?
So I got to chat to a lot of the cast and of the movie. I got to chat to Jenna Ortega, Melissa Barrera, who are returning cast members. Got to talk to Hayden Panettiere and Dermot Mulroney, who's a new addition to the cast, and as well to the directors Matt Bettinelli, Olpin, and Tyler Gillett as well, about returning to helm another Scream movie. And as a reminder, all these interviews are spoiler free, so you can listen to them before you watch Scream 6. A big hello to our returning cast members, Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega, and to new cast member Dermot Mulroney and legacy character Hayden Panettiere.
Hi, Anna.
Hi, Anna.
Hi. So Hayden, I wanted to start with you. What was it like for you to return to the world of Scream?
Oh, it was everything and more. Aside from the COVID factor of it, but I loved it. It was the same family, the same camaraderie, same feelings on set, everybody having each other's back, laughter and joy, and just everyone getting along. I mean, there was just not a moment that wasn't fun.
Melissa, did you feel more or less pressure this time round returning to the world of Scream?
If it was possible to feel more pressure, I think more pressure. Yeah.
What about yourself, Jenna?
Oh, definitely. I think to be a part of this franchise, one, is kind of scary and intimidating at first, but then to be back again and almost get murdered again, or do the murdering, it's pretty intense.
And Dermot, you're a newcomer to the world. What has been your relationship with the Scream movies until now?
Well, I remember watching Scream 1 in the theater, so some of the cast members weren't even alive yet, right? Could that be?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, right. But I've always remembered it because I feel like it just changed the dial somehow, where movies are making fun of themselves, but even practically speaking, it being a studio horror movie with comedy elements there originally, it really brought horror back to the mainstream cinema in a lot of ways, if you track it that way. So for me to arrive at the end of that formula and join a successful franchise is like amazing. But one of the coolest parts is it's one of the first times, other than where you visit a television show, where the actors already all know each other and are friends. So I was joining a group that was already established and was welcomed with open arms. We had so much crazy amount of fun.
Yes, a lot of
as you'd
there.
hope, because one of the richest parts of the Scream franchise, of course, is the humor. So that's part of our assignment too, and we really because the rest of it's so horrifying. We definitely embraced that
Yes.
part of it in the making of the movie.
And I'm always curious because the productions of Scream have always been kind of notoriously really sensitive about spoilers, and kind of really protective of where the story goes. How much did you know or not know about what was happening in the film?
I mean,
I
they
feel
just
like they were-
withheld the third act from us, right?
Yeah. I feel like they were less sneaky about it this time around than they were the last one. I don't know if it's because there's been instilled trust.
Yeah.
But yeah, they just kept the third act from us for a really long time.
There were different
In-
versions too.
Well, and I think they kind of, yes.
They wanted they wanted to keep.
So they were even trying to
everyone-
trick us.
They were they were trying to trick
That's
us.
how diabolical the producers actually are. They don't even want the actors to know. I'm exaggerating, but they did certainly
No,
present
you're
it
not.
under a cloud of mystery. So the story points have always lived in that space. What I've caught up to joining this now is how fun the chase of that is. And how that's part of the run up to this movie. So it's been a hoot. All of the different theories people have about the whodunit. It's wonderful. If you see one of these other murder mystery movies, you don't already know all the characters. Here, you're already worried because you know them already.
I mean, that's perfect segue. Thank you for that, Dermot, for my next question, which is, Kirby especially returning. She's such a beloved character, such a fan favorite from Scream 4. Did you ever dive into conspiracy theories about your own character?
No, I stopped doing conspiracy theories at Heroes.
Oh,
I was on
yeah, you've been
Heroes.
doing this a long time. Yeah.
It's like the conspiracy theories are endless. So I love just to live with no expectations. Expectation leads to disappointment, and we don't like that. So I'm mystified by all of it.
And Melissa, can I ask you, did you ever dive into some of the online conspiracy theories about your character?
I don't go online.
Smart.
I've learned that I shouldn't do that if I want to be able to sleep at night. And sometimes I'll be like, wow, these fans got their hands on the script or something because they know every single detail, like exactly. And I'm just trying not to engage, to not give anything away.
Hayden, what's been your experience with Scream fans, considering how much love Kirby got from her first appearance in Scream 4?
Oh my gosh, the fact that they supported me coming back so much. I love them as much as they love Kirby, and they're the reason why I made the call and said, "Excuse me, can I come back, please?"
Oh, did you actually request to come back to the franchise?
I made the call and I was like, by the way, still here, still
I love that.
potentially alive. So please, if there's a chance of bringing me back, I want to come back, and my fans.
Does
the
that
fans
mean
do
that
too.
you are, after all, a last girl
Of course, I'm
from
the last
Scream
girl.
4? But you didn't even know.
But
it.
I didn't know.
So she even was mystified. Didn't know whether
Secret
you were
final
alive
girl.
or not. Final girl. That's what I mean. Yeah. So she's like a double final right? With the twist.
Double final with the twist.
Yeah.
Jenna, what do you think is different about this big city ghost face compared to previous ones we've seen?
I think because it's in public or because it's such a big city, you would assume that more people would help or be involved, or it would be, Ghostface would be less successful in attacking people in broad daylight. But I feel like it's the opposite. I feel like nobody cares what's going on. I feel like it's very easy for your screams to be lost in the crowd. And this Ghostface is just a lot more spontaneous and a lot more audacious.
And he doesn't give a, I think this is the first movie where Ghostface is just killing people.
Yeah.
It's not just targeted towards the characters. It's just oh, you were in the way, you're dead. And I feel like that's a first.
And as a final question, we see this incredible shrine to Ghostface killers of the previous films in Scream 6. What's your own personal favorite Ghostface killer?
I still love Skeet.
Yeah.
Skeet Ulrich, the original.
I know. Well, and it's also Matthew Lillard
Oh, Matthew Lillard. Yes.
And that scene
Matt's
where he hits
the
him with
best.
the phone. I don't know. I just really like, my ear and all that.
Yes.
You had to hit me.
And then Emma, I adore Emma and Rory, Emma Roberts and Rory Culkin, who I've known both of them since we were younger, but Rory, since we were really little, used to have play dates and sleepovers and stuff. And so I have a great bond with both of them, and they
that sounds like a scary sleepover.
Yeah.
Considering you're not supposed to have sleepovers in the horror world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're
lucky you.
Sometimes you're stabbed by your best friends.
Lucky you survived that.
Thank you all so much for your time. I had a really stressful time with the movie.
Wonderful to hear.
Good.
Thank you.
I'm now joined by the directors of Scream 6, Matt Bettinelli-Olpin and Tyler Gillett. Hi, guys.
Great to meet you. Yeah.
So, first of all, I wanted to ask you about reuniting with Samara Weaving for this installment. Can you tell me a little bit about bringing her back?
We could talk forever about Samara. It was such a joy. It was everything that we sort of hoped it would be. I know we've been trying to get Samara, work with her again since Ready or Not. And it was so fun to have her come out and play on this one. Yeah. It just felt like old friends. It's so funny when you have a process and you take a break from it. It was like we just fell right back into that same rhythm. And we just love her so dearly.
And pretty sure the role was written with her in mind. And so just a phone call and she was like, I'm out, I'm on my way, I'm coming.
And I wanted to address the fact that it's a big move for the film to be set in New York City instead of Woodsboro. So I was wondering, why did you decide it was time to leave Woodsboro behind?
There's this desire to reinvent and sort of outdo yourself, right? With every movie. And I think that was just the most fun way for them to achieve that, like right off the bat, change the setting, and then kind of everything that you think and know about the movies sort of goes out the window, or it has to be adjusted to that new location. And we were just so excited by that idea.
And for yourselves as directors, was there anything that you didn't get to do on last year's Scream that you managed to get away with this time around?
Big set pieces.
Yeah. Big chases with lots of layers and sort of gears and obstacles.
And I wanted to ask as well, every Scream movie has always addressed something that's been going on that's in the ether with film culture. Last year's was obviously requels. And what do you think Scream 6 is tackling?
I mean, part of it's obviously franchises.
Like online communities and how sort of toxic and scary they can be. The rumor mill of that space.
And that actually brings me on to my last question. I've had a ton of fun diving into the conspiracy theories before I actually watched the film. And I wanted to ask you, do you ever look them up yourself? Or do you really stay away?
No, we look at them. We sort of have to. It feels like to be a part of something that is so meta and is reaching through the screen and having a direct conversation with the audience. We wouldn't be doing our jobs if we weren't aware of what those conversations were in that space.
Thank you both so much, and congratulations on the film.
Thank you.
Anna, Louise, is it time to get into spoilers?
I'm genuinely nervous.
I'm quite nervous, and I'm just gonna. We've warned people a lot, but we'll warn them one more time. From this point onwards, we will spoil everything about Scream 6: the killers, who lives, who dies, motives, favorite set pieces, everything. So be warned. Spoilers begin here, guys. Where should we start? Should we talk about how right and wrong our predictions were?
Yes. Please. Because we were extremely right and extremely wrong.
So wrong.
Simultaneously.
So true. You're right. There were some things, me and Louise were sat next to each other where we kind of glanced at each other being like, yes, we knew it. And then other things took me completely by surprise, which is exactly what I wanted. It was exactly what I needed.
So what would you say is the biggest surprise that you did not expect?
I loved that opening scene.
Yes.
That opening scene was genuinely just a delight because it kept going. Obviously, Samara was brilliant. We saw Ghostface Killer, and then he just pulled the mask off.
Which is something we've never seen. Yeah.
Ever. And it felt like we're something new. And then you followed him, and it turned out he was friends with Tara, and I was literally going, this is amazing. Is this how it's going to stay?
Are we going to follow the killer throughout the whole movie?
Yeah.
And then he gets killed as well.
Yep.
So good. I loved everything about it. So just to point out, one of our predictions was who will be the opening scene kill. Me and Louise predicted Samara Weaving. Tick. Anna, you did not cross in your box. You predicted it would be the subway, but we'll get to that later. But yes, Samara Weaving, incredible. Loved that. I loved that it was like two opening scenes in one, like you said. Such a clever thing. But even just that banter between Samara Weaving and her potential date in the restaurant was so much fun. I loved it.
A film studies professor.
It was so good, and it was
it.
And it pulled off straight away for me that perfect balance of humor and horror that I love about Scream. She was so funny. It was sweet. I genuinely already didn't want her to die, although I knew she clearly was about to. Right when she
the
goes
minute
into
we
that.
saw her, it was like, oh no.
Oh no,
Oh, no.
Samara. But it's a great moment, isn't it? Getting stabbed in a public alley in the middle of the night, no one noticing.
Going to our earlier point in the pre-spoiler section, she literally gets stabbed in one of those alleys where there's tons of people walking on one side, tons of people walking on the other. You can see the end of the alleyway and still gets murdered. The killer literally takes his mask off, walks away. That's New York, baby.
It's good, isn't it?
There's no rush.
Good.
That's the scary thing as well. He just takes it off, takes his zipper off, puts it in the bag. There's no rush. Just casual. She's lying there,
Absolutely
just
chill.
casual.
Yeah.
Done.
No one will care.
And then, that brilliant reveal, something like you said, guys, that we've never seen in a Scream movie before. Opening scene, the mask comes off and we straight away see who it is. What a cool, fun twist. Like straight away, I was like, holy shit, this is going to be really, really fun. A character called Jason, of course he's called Jason, is the killer, right? And he is set up, he's played by Tony Revolori, and he is set up to be your classic Scream killer that we've seen a million times before at this point, right? A teenage boy, a film fan. We follow him back to his apartment. His apartment is filled with posters of like Last Podcast on the Left.
It looks like
one of my favorite podcasts.
It looks like my study.
Yeah.
You'd stop shooting in my study, guys.
Yeah, I know. I was like, oh, right. Okay, so this is me, this character. Your classic horror movie nerd. He's a stab movie obsessive.
He's a giallo obsessive. He's got a Dario Argento movie t-shirt.
Yeah. The ultimate horror bro. And he basically reveals his whole plan in this sequence, right, where he phones his friend. Him and his friend have got this whole plan where they're going to go on a killing spree, Ghostface style, mirror the stab movies. They're going to come after Tara. It's amazing. It's like a final act of a previous Scream film that is the opening act, right? And then, of course, he's killed by this very different Ghostface, the dirty masked Ghostface, right? Such a cool opening scene.
Oh my God, I loved it because it is... We'll talk about kind of how this film talks about film culture in general, but this really feels like two ghost faces. One of them was basically a bigger Ghostface fan than the other one. It's like, oh, this is your daddy's horror film. This is not this like weird bro-ish stuff that you're into like a kid.
Yeah.
I loved it.
But this comes back to another prediction that we all made, which was that maybe this killer won't care so much about the movies. And actually his last line, right, he says, who gives a fuck about the movies or something before that final stab as he kills Jason. So already you know, oh, okay, this is not going to be just a teenage movie nerd. This is going to be something else.
That script I found really interesting because it was all very Scream. It's like we're going to describe the plot to each other here for what's actually happening, but it never ever felt like that. It's got that amazing heightened writing which they've just now nailed in terms of style of it feels very Scream. It's doing something different, but you know where you are at all times. And it somehow manages to magically elevate that. And it's the script all the way through. And I think it's what we properly loved about Scream 5. But this does it. It just cranks it up again, going, this is what you expect. This is more of what you expect. Wicked talking characters.
Yes.
But you know exactly where you are and how different it is.
And technically, at this point, by the end of the opening scene, we have already met 3 killers, right? So we've met Jason, and we've sort of met his friend Greg, who is in the fridge, and then we've met the other Ghostface killer who murders them both. So, I mean, you could argue as to whether or not Greg is technically a killer because we don't know that he's actually murdered anyone before he's killed, but we've already met 2, potentially 3 killers
in the opening scene
before the title
So
card.
actually, this is the biggest prediction that I think we got very right, that this Scream is about the killers. It's not so much about the victims.
Mm-hmm.
And also, we did see all three of them, just one of them was in a fridge.
That's true. That's true. One of them was in a fridge. Exactly. Louise predicted there would be 3 killers. I predicted there would be 4 killers.
I said Legion.
Anna said Legion.
Technically also correct.
I was going to say you win the bet.
Yeah, in some ways we're all kind of right, I think, aren't we? Because, well, we'll get to it when we talk about the final killer reveal at the end. But
technically there was 5 killers.
Yeah, I guess there is. Although what's his name in the fridge didn't get to kill anyone.
That's true. That's right.
So
Or maybe he killed someone.
So we're sort of all right in a way, because there's 3 killers revealed at the end, which you could tick Louise for. There's 4 killers that you actually see kill people, which I predicted. And there is sort of a legion of killers, because there's more than that, you know?
Everyone's a ghost face.
I think we all get a point for that prediction.
And it's nice as well when there's that many killers, because no one's obsessing about who's killing who.
Yeah.
Because there was always that thing where you were like, well, if there's that many...
They're more collaborative.
That's there, who's there, that person's there, and suddenly...
Although I am looking forward to going back and watching it again and trying to work out in my head who's in the costume when, you know?
Yeah. And I think one of the biggest predictions that Louise made was that there was going to be some amount of spatula kills. So you just want to refresh on what a spatula kill is?
So a spatula kill is when there is someone that you think is dead, but the ambulance, with their magical power of healing blankets and spatulas, manages to remove that person from the ground, somehow alive.
Scrape them up.
And scoop them into an ambulance. There was far too many almost spatula kills here.
Yeah.
We had people who should be dead.
Do you know what, actually? We all predicted that this movie would have a mammoth body count. It actually didn't, right?
Yeah.
But at first glance, before they scooped them up, it really did.
Yeah.
And also, I think in this, it turns out now the rules of Scream are, if you get hit in the body, you're fair game for survival. It's only if you get hit in the head, and boy, does this have a thing for heads. if you get stabbed in the head, that's the only way. We're now at zombie rules.
Yes.
You have to be stabbed in the head.
Yes.
There's even a moment in the film where I think it's Chad who just yells beheadings.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's where the bar is. Like we expect beheadings now.
Yep, that's where we are. But yes, the old spatula had a lot of use for this movie.
Because we had Chad and Mindy both have these big moments where they were stabbed multiple times, but both didn't die. Gail got her big set piece where it looked like she was dead, didn't die.
Because I thought Anna was about to get her.
I was so happy.
Prediction.
It was spot on. And then she just like, oh, there's a weak heartbeat. I was like, no,
don't do it.
Die.
Don't.
I mean, I love Gail, but like, no, this is your moment to die peacefully.
Yes.
And great final line.
And we'll talk about Gail's set piece as well. But yeah, so it's interesting that actually they've still kept all of these main characters alive. Obviously, Sam and Tara both survive as well. So all of our core group, our core 4 plus Gail plus Kirby, all still alive at the end of the movie, which is interesting. So I guess there's potential there to bring them all back for a Scream 7 if that happens.
Oh, I'm sure that will happen.
Yeah.
So shall we talk a little bit more in depth about the core 4?
Yes.
Yes. So how has their relationship changed? Because Tara has gone to university in New York. Sam has followed her, but they live together, but there's tension there. And then there's a potential romantic subplot between Chad and Tara. And Mindy, Mindy's just being Mindy, really.
Yeah. I think it was, I think I felt that, as you were saying in the pre-spoilers, I felt really at home with them, and I really enjoyed seeing the fact they were all living together, and I think the party scene did a really good job of showing the dynamics between them, so they just gradually started appearing.
Yeah.
And it was clearly all about looking after Tara, who's like, I don't need looked after. But I thought that was a really good way of hitting the dynamic of they're all here, they're all in variations of themes of trauma, really.
Yeah.
But they're all still together. And the fact that they're living together, and even the calling themselves of the core 4, I was like, oh no, now you've named yourselves. I don't want you to die now you've named yourselves.
I think that was what surprised me. I think when we were making predictions of who lives, who dies, I sort of thought to myself, yeah, both of the twins will die.
Yeah.
I'm not really that fussed if they do. Actually, I found myself caring if they lived or died when I watched this again, because I think this film did a better job of building up these characters into being really well-rounded human beings that I cared about. I think Jasmine Savoy Brown is so good. Like, her facial expressions are really funny. She gets some great moments. Obviously, Chad is just this very like warm, nice character as well. He's just like a nice boy, isn't he, basically? And there's that sort of that potential relationship blooming with Tara, and then you've got Tara and Sam, this kind of sister dynamic, which is in itself is interesting in this film. I think that Sam has become this kind of paranoid maniac with a taser and is kind of following Tara around.
Sam gets kind of blamed for the events of Scream 5, which I find quite interesting. Like, she's essentially being quote unquote cancelled online because people think she's a murderer, but Tara seems to have escaped a lot of this. So she's not the face of the Woodsboro massacre in the same way that Sam was. So she's kind of hiding underneath that and trying to run away from that and not really deal with it, whether Sam is much more actively trying to deal with it through therapy and cannot really escape people associating her with that. So there's a tension there. And like with the twins, I will say it seems slightly savage to be rooting for a character, even a fictional one, to die at the end of a movie, but I did feel like the only kind of thing that I regretted was that Chad didn't die at the end, because I think that would have given Mindy such a good, thorny, meaty amount of grief and something to deal with in the next movie, should there be one, because then that would really grow her character a bit more. Like, she's a twin who's lost her twin.
And her girlfriend.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would have been like Dewey losing Tatum, right? Exactly. It's like that similar dynamic. Yes, I agree. And also, he was stabbed so many times. I'm like, really? He's absolutely fine. He's just on a stretcher chatting at the end. And it's like, yeah, I don't know about that. But like you said, Louise, it's like zombie rules now at this point. Yeah.
I'll say, I thought it was really interesting that I always think when you get to the end of a horror movie, regardless of whether it's Scream or other slasher movies, I've always thought, who is it? I mean, what do the police do? I mean, what is the paperwork like for, well, then I killed him and then I ran over here and then I just stopped him from doing this. But actually it was him and he's been pretending this all the way along. And you always think, well, how do the police work out actually who was the killer, because they weren't there for the monologue. So I thought that was particularly interesting for the end of Scream 5, that of course the internet reacted in that way.
Yeah.
Because the internet doesn't know, they don't have any of it. All they have is one person's account. And of course, as we know about the internet and what it does. So I loved seeing all the fan art and her Twitter feed and her Instagram feed, and just the idea of like how people would react and filming it and all the rest of it. So I felt like that was actually a really effortless insertion of another, as you said, the tech will be the bigger focus. Tech and social media was the big focus here of that's exactly, that's what we're faced with.
It's true. That's the one thing that we didn't predict. The one kind of big topic that this movie does sort of cover is quote unquote cancel culture, I suppose, right? That's something that Scream 5 didn't really touch upon, that has been such a big deal over the last few years. And this idea that somebody can start some rumor about somebody on the internet and it became this thing where Sam is getting attacked in the street and people are filming it and it's going viral. All of that was kind of interesting, and I liked this kind of tease of Sam. Is Sam actually a bit of a psychopath as well? And like her talking to her therapist about how she quite enjoyed stabbing Richie to death. And of course, Ghost Billy Loomis comes back a couple of times as well. Like, I kind of liked
not
this.
That much though, which is refreshing.
Yes, but we didn't know he was going to be in it at all, did we? So it was kind of funny to see him pop back up again. But yeah, what did you think of that, of Sam's potential kind of? They're still keeping that thing going of, is she going to be a killer at some point?
They're keeping that going, and I think it's if you get real down and serious about it, like, people can be high-functioning psychopaths. Like, if they are diagnosed as psychopaths, it does not automatically mean you're a serial killer. Like, that is your destiny. It just means that their brain is wired in a different way. And Sam actually doesn't really, exhibit those patterns. It's sort of movie psychopath, where it's like, well, because your dad was the serial killer, the dad you never met, you must be one too. So maybe she is prone to violence, but violence can also just be in self-defense. And there's a very dramatic moment towards the end where she's holding Billy's knife and she lets it go. She literally walks away from the killing life, because that's not really who she is. All the violence that she enacts is always in a protective measure. It's never actually to hurt anyone.
Yep, she's more likely to become a CEO, because they're all psychopaths, than actually a killer. But yeah, I like that as well. I like the fact that and if it ever goes back on that, I would think less of them.
Well, yeah, I think that's the thing. I think it's a fun little subplot, but I don't know if I actually believe that Sam is a psychopath or would kill it. Like, as much as it keeps teasing that, I don't actually believe that that's what she'll become at some point.
Yeah, I think it's more of a self thing of the daughter will father the father. It's more of an internalized trauma for her of, I never want to be that. I never want to be that. So then that automatically rises up, and she's being surrounded by it, unfortunately, as is the case with the franchise. So I think that's the eternal push and pull.
Speaking of franchise,
well, quite.
Anna was right.
You nailed it when you made the prediction that this movie's thing that it would tackle is the what word did you use?
The Frenchification.
The Frenchification. And of course, we get the usual scene where Mindy explains to her friends what movie they're in. She's like, "We've done the sequel, we've done the requel. Now it's all about the franchise." And I was like, "Holy shit, Anna got it spot on."
Yes, I was like, "This is the Anna scene. This is perfect."
This idea that now the IP is bigger than them, and so it's going to keep going, and anybody can live or die. Main characters are interchangeable.
The characters don't matter. The new ones don't matter. The legacy ones don't matter. The only thing that matters is the IP.
Yeah.
And that's how the whole landscape of entertainment has really changed over the last couple of years. And Mindy, as the designated Randy character, nails it. And she is talking about the Scream franchise as well, which again is the thing that I really hoped would manifest itself kind of through more kills, is that, well, if IP is the only thing that matters, then none of these characters who are so beloved now or who you feel so at home with, they can all go. And that is the danger zone for Scream 6, is that, well, the only thing that matters is the Ghostface mask and the Ghostface trademark. Everyone can go.
If you can put it on socks, that's it. She says, wearing Ghostface socks.
It's good, right? I think it's a fun idea. And again, it didn't necessarily follow through with it because all of our core characters survive. But also that's something that Scream has always had fun with. How many times in the Scream franchise have Randy or Mindy gone, anyone can die this time? And a lot of the time they don't, But I guess it gives you that sense of peril that we do think, oh my God, is Gail about to die? Is Mindy about to die? And I definitely felt that all the way through this movie,
That's all we need then.
Yeah.
Almost.
We need a sense of peril.
That we don't need actual proof of it by the end. We're actually just quietly relieved. But as long as the whole time we've got the, oh no, because then it feels cheap sometimes if they did it. And that's how I felt about Avengers when they killed obviously half the population. And there were people in the cinema crying. And I'm going, they're going to come back. It's a franchise.
Yes.
They're literally shooting another 3 movies. And you don't have that. So you always have that sense of, oh.
Yes. And because they killed Dewey in the last one, I think that was a good move, because you do go, okay, they are going to do this, Yeah.
But you guys also nailed it, the both of you, when you talked about the true crime focus of this one, the obsession with the killers, and that is presented to us from the very first scene when Ghostface says, "Who gives a fuck about movies?" So how do you think they there's not a big monologue about it, but the motivation of the killers, which we'll discuss a little bit later on, and even from that very first scene, what do you make of the focus on the Ghostface killers, the people behind the mask?
I mean, I loved it. I love this idea that so with each killing, the killer would leave a ghost face mask. And that ghost face mask was literally a ghost face mask worn by different killers. It has their DNA on it. And we're going backwards in time, right? So the first kills, we see a Richie mask. Then it's a, Jill mask. Then it's Roman Bridger. Then it's Mrs. Loomis or Mickey. And eventually we're working our way back to the beginning to... is it going to be Stu or Billy Loomis? And it's really teasing that throughout the whole film as to, is this in some way going to lead us back to the beginning for the final sequence? I loved it. I loved Kirby's big board of all of our previous killers. I loved our evidence boxes full of stuff that the killers owned and wore. I thought, well, that was really fun, right?
It was that. This is a movie that's in love with not the stab movies, the Scream movies.
Yes.
It's just in love with itself, totally. Yes. And it glories in it. It makes a museum out of itself. And that's for us, is we don't need necessarily everything to be explained to us. We see the camera that, Gil's cameraman had. We see the TV. All of these things are props for us. So yes, it's about true crime in that world. But for us, we realise that we are the true crime obsessives in this world. we're the ones that know everything, because that's why, I mean, they've been very clever in the fact that sometimes they went round and sort of touched stuff and said this is this and that's that, but other times we would just see it and know it. You know, we saw all of Gail Weathers' books, we saw all of these things.
Tatum's outfit in which she gets killed, like there's things that aren't even pointed out or aren't included in close-up that we instantly recognize as Scream
top
fans.
story jacket.
And again, it's so talking directly to the fandom. You know, there's the moment when they see the TV that killed Stu, and then Mindy goes, well, if you believe he's dead. And it's like, they so know what they're doing. They are playing with us constantly in these movies. It's like a dialogue between the film and the fans with every entry, you know.
Before we go into the serial killer layers, can we just address the pickle in the room?
Still no Stu.
Still in the jar,
Stu.
Anna.
He's still in
My
the jar.
biggest disappointment. The way my heart leapt out of my chest when Mindy said, if you believe he's dead. Yeah. When we go down to that layer, the expectation I had.
Oh, Anna.
I know.
I've never been so toyed with by a franchise.
It's so funny. I mean, this is the thing. It's all deliberate, right?
Yeah,
this teasing. They know, you know, the subway map that we talked about before, and the marketing, and how Stu's station was a different colour. The mentions of Stu in Scream 5, the if he's even still alive line in Scream 6. They're just teasing us because still no sign of Stu at this point onwards. You know, he's probably dead. He's probably never coming back. But the franchise loves having fun with us in that way.
My hope lives on for Scream 7 or Scream 8.
Yep,
maybe
sure.
for Scream 10.
Sure, we're here for the whole franchise. Maybe for the spin-off series starring Kirby. You know, like, sure.
Should we talk about Kirby in more depth? What did you guys think of her? So she is a cop, as we predicted.
FBI agent.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I loved it. I loved all of that. I think when we'll be talking about our favourite moments later, and one of them is her interactions with Gail are they're just my favourite things. Because every moment where she was on screen, I was just so happy that she was there. Because again, it's one of those, I didn't realise she was missing in Scream 5 until suddenly she was in Scream 6. Of course she's meant to be here. It added a confidence to it, and she's a great character.
And it's also, you know, we never really get to see the nerd grow up. Randy gets killed in Scream 2.
Mindy's still young.
Uni.
Yep.
Mindy's, just in university now. We only really met her in high school. The film buff nerd / Ghostface killers from Scream 4, also high school nerds. So we never really get one of these horror buffs like grow up and be a part of society. So actually seeing Kirby, in that wonderful, one of my personal favorite moments is when she's having that horror off scene with Mindy. She's still into this stuff. She's still keeping up to date. She's also kind of made crime into her career in a sense, as an FBI agent. So she's channeled all of that into something positive, and she's still just as fun and just as nerdy as she was when she was a teenager.
Did you guys ever think that she might be the killer? Because the film kind of, as it does with everyone, but it kind of puts a bit of suspicion on her at various points throughout the movie, right? Dermot Mulroney's character, we'll discuss him later obviously, but there are a lot of moments when he is suspicious of her or planting suspicion on her, right? Did you guys ever think that might be the case?
So weirdly, I never suspected her.
Yeah.
I had a little moment, especially when he started trying to, raise suspicion about her. I suspected him more than I did her.
Same.
And I can't really put my finger on why I never really suspected her. I think perhaps because, I guess, just an allegiance to her as a survivor of Woodsboro, but I never really thought that she could be the one behind the mask, to be honest.
Same, to be honest. Yeah, I think, I don't know, maybe it's just that love of Kirby as a character, but I just never believed her. I never believed her even in this movie to be a killer. I don't know.
It's that there is that moralistic justification throughout the series that she just, again, doesn't seem to have. I would have felt, even when we saw that sort of lingering shot of her locking a door, and I was like, I still don't believe you. I know you're meant to be making it menacing. You're not menacing. You're the good. You're the force for good.
And we know the mechanics now of Scream and the way in which they plant suspicions on people. And yes, as soon as it gets to that final act and she locks them in that theatre space, and Dermot Mulroney calls and says she was never part of the FBI or she was let go a few months ago, I was like, no.
Yeah, we both laughed. We both laughed.
And he does the crazy woman thing. It's like, she's mentally unstable. She was let go from the FBI 3 months ago. It's like, oh, were you using that line? You're the suspect.
Yeah, that was when I knew it was him. But it's still really fun. And I think they have a lot of fun with Kirby, like bringing back the Kirby that we know and love, but also just leaving a few question marks over her as well, right? Which is quite a nice thing to do.
And shall we talk about Richie's lair? Because we discovered towards the end that actually this theater space that has become a shrine to Ghostface and all the Ghostface killers, the Scream movies as well, as you rightfully pointed out, is actually Richie's lair.
Yeah, do you know what? I did not expect this movie to be as much about Richie. Like, I think, you know, as old school fans, like we're legacy fans, right? We were obsessed with the notion that it was going to connect to Stu or to Billy or to somebody like that, right? It hadn't even crossed my mind that this would be in some way connected to Richie. So yeah, that did take me by surprise.
But I guess that's how you do. And I mean, if last year's Scream was lots of people's first Scream movie, which it was, and people have gone back, and it has to be cohesive. This was a natural sequel to last year's sequel. In that way, it flowed perfectly. So actually, that makes complete sense. But not to us, because we're obsessed with pickles. But it does make full sense, you know. And it's following those Scream rules. That it's always about something in the past, and Richie is in the past. That's what it leads to.
Yeah, and of course, this movie does, and we sort of predicted this a little bit, this movie sort of mirrors Scream 2. If the last one mirrors Scream 1, this one has a few comparisons, I think, to Scream 2, and we should talk about some of the scariest set pieces as we go later. But that idea that actually the killer is just a family member taking revenge, that is Mrs. Loomis all over again, isn't it? It's slightly bigger this time round. It takes
place in a theatre in the same way as Scream 2.
It takes place in a theatre, exactly, and it is just pretty simple. They don't really care about the movies. It's just good old-fashioned revenge, basically. The movie aspect and the Ghostface aspect is actually all a ploy to frame Sam, isn't it? But it's not what they care about as a group of killers this time around. So yeah, I thought that was all kind of fun, and it was nice that it boiled down to a simple revenge from Richie's family kind of thing.
So what do we make about Richie's family? The three killers.
3 killers.
Of whom I predicted 2.
You did. You predicted father and daughter.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which actually scuppered my chances going in of actually not suspecting, even when that corpse came flying out of that room. I was like,
Did you feel a smug sense of satisfaction when it was revealed?
Yes, but also a slight sense of disappointment, which I think, as you're saying, if people are stopping listening to our predictions so that they don't think too much when they're watching, that was exactly what happened. I was like, see, if I hadn't thought, I think I would have been more surprised. I loved that reveal. I loved the idea of it that being the 3 of them, because again, we've seen this relentless Ghostface who has felt to be everywhere. Yes. Almost omnipresent Ghostface who has been constantly in pursuit, and that can actually only come from multiples, even when you think you've got one person in one room and one another. So I thought the reveal of 3 killers was great, and he was having a whale of a time being
Dermot Mulroney, absolutely hamming it up in the most beautiful way.
He was the standout.
So good.
He was the absolute standout. So we should say, so it turns out to be Detective Bailey, played by Dermot Mulroney, and then his 2 children, Ethan, played by Jack Champion, who is this kind of nerd, classic kind of quiet, shy nerd, who they actually do basically suspect throughout the whole film. It's like a running joke, right? That particularly the twins, Chad and Mindy, they literally call him Ghostface throughout the film. They're like, you are clearly the killer, like the weird little quiet nerdy kid. So he's almost hiding in plain sight, that one. The point where you almost write him off because they keep thinking it's Ghostface. And then his sister, Detective Bailey's daughter, Quinn Bailey, who is Sam's flatmate, right, in the city. We don't really find out much about her except that she's just her fun flatmate, who is basically
she's very, as she says, very sex positive.
Very sex positive.
Which, as we know, is a recipe to get killed very quickly in a Scream movie.
Exactly. And she's offed pretty quickly, but of course off screen, which is always a big red flag, right? That there's a scene that almost reminded me of Urban Legend, weirdly, from 1998, where they think they're overhearing her having sex. Actually, it turns out to be her being attacked, quote unquote, attacked and killed. But by the time they break into the bedroom to help her, she's already lying there dead. And I was like, that's strange. We didn't see her die. And of course, yes, so it turns out to be this family of father and 2 kids who are all related to Richie that are taking revenge and trying to frame Sam, basically. I loved them. I thought, for me, Dermot Mulroney was the standout. The other 2, they were fine.
I do really like, Liana Liberato, who plays Quinn, does have this sort of unhinged, Manson family follower type of look on her face that Amber has in Scream 5, and I quite like that kind of as a trope, a young woman who will just do whatever it takes to get this mission accomplished, to kill these people. I quite like that. I thought she got away with that.
And she had that high camp horror thing of the fact that she was spitting out her teeth, which obviously I hate horror with teeth, but it's because she'd been hit with a brick around the face. But I love just this idea of her just spitting them out and coming across that balcony. I was like, oh, I like you.
Yeah. I mean, and also this is the first Scream movie to actually show two killers wearing the Ghostface mask together. You never see two people as full-blown Ghostface, and there was something quite cool and eerie when the two ghost faces are stabbing Chad.
That's it. It's why Chad should have died.
Yeah.
Because that would have been a kill.
And then the reveal of Detective Bailey as our first killer, and then he had a ghost face on either side of him. He's like two ghost face minions. Almost, kind of gave, we talked a lot about that kind of the cult of ghost face idea, and it almost looked a bit like a cult at that moment, didn't it? And I quite liked all of that imagery in the last act that we hadn't seen before. Yeah.
Absolutely. So should we talk about the final scene, the final confrontation, once we actually know the reveal? It doesn't end there. There's so much more stabbing going on.
So much stabbing. That's why 4DX is going to be an issue for me. There's so much stabbing.
It's great, isn't it? It's fun. It's our classic. It's everything I wanted from a final act of Scream. The killer reveals, they go mad, they become truly unhinged. It's stabby, stabby, stab, running around, falling off high platforms, and God knows what else is going on. It's fun, right?
Mm-hmm. I think again, that's what happens. The problem when you analyse a trailer so hard is early on we were talking about the subway scene where we thought Mindy died, but actually that was two separate trains, which was a very, very clever trailer edit.
Very clever.
If you think about it being, because we thought that was all one thing. We're like, this doesn't happen like it does in the trailer. Oh wait, we're idiots.
Yes.
The play does. Yeah. And I think we were waiting for, again, falling off the balcony thing, which I think none of us could have calculated the fact that we were looking at Tara with a smirk and we're thinking, is Tara villainous? But actually, she's jumping down with the knife to kill him at her feet, which I loved all of that. It felt like the kind of waves of deserved catharsis, sort of as we're taking revenge on the various ghost faces. We needed that, I think. And I think it's easier when you have one or two. And then when you have three, that is just upped even further. But it manages to deliver it very gorily.
And all during this is happening, we're seeing a third version of Scream, which is Richie's homemade version from when he was a kid, like a kind of kid home movie version of Stab or Scream, playing on a big giant projected screen throughout the whole thing as well, which I
that's
sort of
a red
loved.
flag for any child. But I love the fact that it was also contained in this one location, which is also a classic Scream thing. But instead of a house, it's a space that none of them really know that well because it's Richie's spot.
And they've locked themselves into.
Exactly. Yeah, so nobody can possibly come in and help them, and everybody who is inside there is either dead, or we believe to be dead at this point, or trying to kill them. And the camaraderie that develops between Sam and Tara at this point, where they go kind of full hog and go to stab back, it's not just defending themselves, they're actually attacking the Ghostface family.
Yeah.
It's great, isn't it?
It's so satisfying.
It is satisfying.
It's a movie theatre this time round as well, isn't it? Rather than like because in Scream 2 it all played out almost like a Greek tragedy play, right? With the mother taking revenge on the son. This one, it's like an old abandoned movie theatre because there's a moment when they're in the box office hanging out and everything as well, right? But it's a really cool setting. I loved all of that. It was great.
So shall we talk about some of the set pieces? I mentioned earlier that New York City gives them the opportunity to create bigger killing set pieces. What were some of your favorite ones?
The ladder.
Yeah, the ladder.
Oh my gosh, the ladder.
Oh my god.
So that for me is the first scene since the car in Scream 2 where I felt genuine sustained tension in a Scream film, and I really appreciated that, like an actual edge of your seat, nasty sequence. It was great.
I think it's the simplicity of that. Understanding that it doesn't have to do grand set pieces. It's like, well, how do you get out of a New York apartment? Oh, you just put this ladder across. And just the desperation of having it layered up with Ghostface trying to get through a door, a chest of drawers in front of the door. It's just effortlessly orchestrated for pure tension, and it has a horrific release of poor Mindy's other half. And we even, just proving the brutality of this Scream, we see the moment her head hits the dumpster on the way down.
And we see a shot of her as well, absolutely destroyed by that fall.
Yeah, no spatula's going to save her.
No, she was spatula proof at that point. Yeah, it was great. I really liked it. You knew that obviously someone was going to die, and I did think to myself, I was like, the two really maimed girls were left till last to crawl across the ladder. I was like, I think they should have sent them across first, to be honest. But anyway.
Mindy did try. And I did think that her girlfriend was going to do the sacrificial thing of, I'm not even going to try, I'm going to push the ladder away and you guys save yourselves and I'll distract him or whatever. But she did try, bless her.
It was good. Again, it's just that added brutality that the Scream movies have, which I appreciate, which is just like genuine fear from that girlfriend where she's going, I don't want to die. Please don't let me die. I don't want to die. And again, it's like those little touches are what make the Scream movies that much more scary and threatening, I think.
The other scene that I did feel myself genuinely be tense around was the subway scene.
Yes.
Mainly because at any given point, I really was expecting Ethan to be shown to be villainous. And of course he is, but he's, just playing a deer in headlights. So the whole thing while Mindy's being chased, even the point when she misses the train where everyone else is on, I'm like, oh no. There's 2 chances for attack here.
Yeah, totally. I really like that scene too, because again, like we talked about at the beginning, there's something quite chilling about being on a busy subway train and nobody noticing, nobody saving her. She's just there being stabbed against the door and everyone is just standing there like nothing's happening. Like, that's a really scary thing. Something that you could almost believe happening as well, right? It's great.
There was a lot of, if we're talking about the physicality of it as well, there was a lot of knife turning. There was a lot of, the brutality that we were talking about is because we see people being stabbed, but it's almost not enough for this ghost face. There's like turning. The poor girlfriend was properly like all the way up.
Yes.
It was properly agonising. And I think it's those added elements because we now care so much about Mindy. And we don't want to see that, what we've just seen, happen to her. Again, the peril is racked up because the brutality is nastier and we don't want to watch them get stabbed. We certainly don't want to watch them suffer. And I think it's that added suffering that's really, you're talking about the added bit of don't want to die. Oh no, don't do this.
It's a sustained moment of tension with all of the different ghost faces. She's looking at different people suspiciously. People are bumping into her. Like, they really let that simmer, that scene, don't they, before the lights going out, coming back on, going out, coming back on, and as he gets closer to her. It's a really well executed little set piece, I think. Yeah,
absolutely.
I also love the scene, and again, this was sort of given away in the trailer, but I do love that sequence when they go into the little corner store and the ghost face has a shotgun. That's again like a good sustained moment of tension,
and again misled us because we thought that this was, a different brand of ghost face who was going to be using guns for the first time, and actually no, it's just a coincidence. It's a thing in the spur of the moment.
It was even more tense than the trailer. I found it genuinely properly tense. All the crunching glass that they were crawling over and stuff. It was, and I think the sound of a gun there, you're going, oh, are you actually going to shoot them with a? Would that be how Ghostface would take them out? Like, that wouldn't be. It just, again, it felt like a rule change, but only in that moment, nice and enclosed.
And then those little other moments, right, when the therapist is killed by being stabbed in the face through his like front door window.
Oh, that's phenomenal! Yeah,
it was great. I loved it.
Who gets stabbed in the mouth? Is it the therapist?
No. The therapist was in the eye, and then it was the ghost face.
Ethan gets stabbed in the mouth
by Tara.
I love that.
That was so good.
Tara is vicious.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Everybody gives Sam a lot of shit, but Tara is absolutely demonically vicious in this film.
I know, I loved it. Their little smile the two sisters have as well as they're killing these killers. Yes. It's great. Really, really fun.
Very conspiratorial.
But maybe we should talk about Gail Weathers' set piece. And also just Gail Weathers generally, right? Because we talked all about how in Scream 5, Gail got her redemption and she said, I'm not going to write a book about this. This was something we didn't predict, and I don't know why we didn't predict it, but she'd done a complete 180. She had written a book about what happened last year.
She's living on the Upper East Side with a hot new boyfriend who serves her tea. We never get to meet him, though. Doesn't even get a name.
No. But it's all about the True Crime Limited series now, and I loved that. And it was this perfect mirroring of Scream.
The punching,
all of that, like the music, because at that moment Trouble in Woodsboro was playing, and it was just like,
the press circus,
and it was suddenly like, we're back. This is where we're back. Of course, we're going to see Gail Weathers here. It was just a joyous, triumphant return of her in lurid colours. Shall we say lurid colours?
Always in such great lurid outfits. I love it, and I love it's very silly and it's very deliberate nostalgia. But the punch, the dodge, and then the second punch from Tara, it was a nice little touch. I enjoyed it. I do think that maybe she flips a bit too quickly. Like, she's set up as I'm back as like badass bitch Gail, and then about one scene later She's like, no, I'm with you guys. It's fine. And they got to that very quickly, almost, didn't they? I could have almost done with her being mean Gale for a bit longer in this film. You know?
I think she's always deep down mean Gale.
Yeah.
Even when she's being attacked by Ghostface, she's mean to Ghostface.
Oh my God, my favourite moment is when she puts him on hold. She goes, "Could you hold?" And you hear Ghostface go, huh? It's so good. I howled at that moment in the screen. I thought it was so good.
The moment where you know that she's talking seriously is when Dewey's theme's playing in the background.
Oh, yeah.
And then you realise that, oh no, that's Dewey's music. Nope, not going to cry. Yep, definitely crying. Definitely crying.
You know what we don't get to explore in Scream 6? Is the dynamic between Gale having the picture of her and Dewey by her bedside. I bet she shares with another man.
I know. I
want to hear that conversation.
I actually spent like a minute thinking about that after that shot, and I thought, you know what? He wouldn't mind. They have a history together.
She also doesn't mind where he gets killed. It's like, oh, whatever.
I know, it's so good. I know. She couldn't give a fuck. It's a great moment, and I really did think Gale was dead. I thought she was dead. And should she have been dead? You know? I don't know.
I personally think, as much as I love Gale, that was her perfect exit.
What does she has some final line, doesn't she, where she says, "Tell Sidney I won."
He didn't get me.
He didn't get me.
That
That should have maybe been her last line.
I bet there was decisions on that.
Yes.
I mean, that's why that will have happened. She'll have said a final line.
Yeah.
I feel like that could definitely have been it. As much as I didn't want it to be it, it felt
it
right.
made sense.
The idea there was a heartbeat was, no.
Also, come on, just like in Scream 7, a shot of Sidney looking at the matching tombstones of Gale and Dewey. Come on, it's a great start.
Putting down a book.
I won't let go of the matching tombstones.
So do you think, putting my conspiracy head on, do you think that she was going to die originally while Sidney was in the script, and then when Nev Campbell dropped out, they thought, we'd best have Gale survive because we still can have one legacy character continue on potentially. And they reshot maybe a bit of She's Got a Pulse or something, because I think they had to do a couple of reshoots late on, right? I wonder if that has something to do with it, the fact that if Nev drops out, we're going to keep Gale alive.
You might be right, but just to echo Mindy, the thing that matters is the IP. And they have returning legacy characters like Kirby now, and a few others that they could bring up. Not many, but a few. So I think that there might be something else in the plans for Courtney, for Gale. But I do wish they had committed to that, because that would have been an absolutely baller move. There
is also the possibility that could still be Gale's end. You know, she might not come back, but it's just that they chose not to kill her as well, maybe. You know, because again, that last line of, you know, "Tell Sidney he didn't get me," kind of does feel like an end point to Gale, doesn't it, in a way? So we'll see. Another person we haven't talked about at all is Danny, is Sam's secret boyfriend.
Cute boy from across the
hunky Danny with the ladder as well. Did you guys ever suspect him?
No, and you know what? I really liked Sam's moment where she tells him to just not go with them. She's like, "No, you know what? You're also a suspect. I don't know you. You weren't there." And he's like, "Yeah, that makes sense. Take care of yourself."
I love that.
I love that. A green flag.
So sensible. It was the most sensible, healthy thing. I was like, well, it's definitely not him. Great. Wonderful. She's made a good decision. She's made a wholesome decision with the guy across the hall.
And he survives, right? Because of that. He does. So he might be in the next film.
And he even gets law enforcement.
Yeah.
He does helpful things.
Yeah. He's actually a really nice guy.
Yeah.
He does a lot of life-saving and helping, actually.
5 stars, no notes on Danny.
Danny's
it's not always rewarded, as Gale Weathers, you know, her boyfriend gives her a cup of tea. It's not always rewarded, but hopefully in this it continues to be that he's a good human.
Oh, there you go. I mean, is there anything else we've missed? Any other highlights?
I think we could just keep waxing lyrical about this for a long time, but
I know. I mean, shout out as ever to Roger Jackson, who is the voice of Ghostface. You know, we get some good phone call moments as ever, right?
Some good humor and that bewildered,
humor.
Huh?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And is it time then for us to do our last Screamies for a while?
Final Screamies.
Good shout. I think it's time for the Screamies.
And as a reminder for listeners of Hello Sydney, the Screamies are the quickfire round we do where we discuss some of our favorite moments in the movies.
Yeah, we give some awards out to some people and moments. So the first Screamie, scariest moment of the film. What do we think was the scariest moment?
I'm going to go for the one shot when they're crawling through the bodega and there's complete silence and he's hunting them, closely followed by the ladder sequence. But that was definitely top for me.
I would say Mindy walking the ladder. Mindy specifically, because it's the middle character that I was worried about the most.
That's a good shout. Mine is a Mindy moment as well, but it's Mindy on the subway. That incredible sustained tension as the lights go out and come back on and go out and come back on and the killer gets closer and closer. It's a really well executed set piece. Best kill.
Ethan.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was going to say Chad, but of course he's not a real kill. He's a spatula kill. So it would have been Chad if he had died. But I'm going to say with Ethan because that was just vicious.
It was vicious. In a different kind of way, I'm going to say Samara Weaving's character because it was such not a shock that she died, but it was followed by the moment of Jason taking the mask off, which was something we've literally never seen before. And that is one of my favourite moments in the whole film, I think. Yeah. Best cameo. Not many cameos in this.
Not that many.
It wasn't. Yeah,
unless you count, the fact that you see, the TV that killed Stu or Debbie,
best cameo, that TV.
Mrs. Loomis's suit, or
all 9 of the ghost faces.
Yeah, I guess we could say best Easter egg, but rather than best cameo, because other than Skeet Ulrich, there weren't many cameos.
Unless you count Samara Weaving as kind of a prolonged cameo.
Okay.
Yeah, or you could say, the Babadook on the subway train, Hellraiser, Jason. They're all in there.
You could even say with the posters, last podcast on the left, a cameo in the Scream.
Mm-hmm.
Love that. Where was the Hello Sidney poster in that room?
That's
what I want to know.
If
they were going to go truly meta, let's have Hello Sidney on somebody's wall for the next film, please.
Scream 7, please.
Yeah.
And Scream branded spatula just in the background.
They'll make that just
a ghost face spatula, yeah.
And we don't have any other, none of our core 3 legacy characters. We just have Gail. So what was your favorite Gail moment?
When she's saying to Kirby, "How old are you?" And Kirby's like, "I'm 30," and she's like, "You look like a zygote."
Which I think I once told that someone looked like a fetus, so I feel even more connected to Gail than ever before.
Yeah, that is great, and I love Gail being the one that beat all of the detectives, the FBI, everyone to finding the lair as well.
Because she's very good at her job.
Because she's good at her fucking job, and she still is. She still remains like the best, most capable person in this franchise, and I love that for her. Yeah.
And in honor of the core 4, what was your favorite core 4 moment?
I actually love them all getting into the ambulance together at the end, because as much as it did feel a bit of a cop-out that both Mindy and Chad survived, I thought it was funny because Mindy rocks up all drugged up on morphine.
Yes.
And that was actually quite a funny moment that I enjoyed when she saw her brother in the stretcher, but was just sort of like, oh, I've taken so many drugs, it was good.
And she got it wrong. She was so furious.
Yeah. I missed the final act again. It was good. Jasmine Savoy Brown, genuinely really funny actress, I think, as well. Yeah.
My best, I think, I loved the really sweet moments where they're having a drink together and telling each other they're together as a group. Yeah. And I genuinely, when they were reassuring Sam that they were with her because of her, I thought that was like to put a sweet moment in there, when someone's not having their eyeball impaled. Yeah, let's be sweet and drink wine.
The dinner they have together at Sam and Tara's apartment, and they're just doing the little pinky swear thing of, the core 4, which is such a nerdy self-title anyway, but still, it was cute.
Final question. We don't know yet. Scream 7 hasn't been announced. Do we think we're going to get a Scream 7? If this is mirroring the original trilogy, it would mean that we'd get another part in the next year or two. And do you think that will happen? Do you want to see that happen? And what do you want to see happen in another Scream installment?
I think it will definitely happen.
Mm-hmm.
And do you know what I think might happen in Scream 7? Influencers.
Ooh.
Yeah.
True crime influencers. Be that through podcast, YouTube, whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that might be something that they encounter.
I think that's what I want from Scream 7. So yeah, I think there will definitely be a Scream 7. I mean, I feel like, and it's not a bad thing in the fact that I feel like we're in a bit of a hype engine for it. And I'm really glad that at the core of it, Scream 6 is excellent. And I genuinely think it's truly excellent. And I think, when you have all these bus ads, when you have, a podcast like this one, and you have everything else, people want this so badly, and these guys are celebrating the franchise. They love it. They love that we love it. And I can only, they definitely had 6 in mind when they were making 5. let's not fool ourselves and think they weren't thinking about 7 when they were making this.
They've literally said in the script, don't they, this is a franchise now, we're going to keep getting new entries, you know. So yeah, I agree. I think we will get another one, and I trust these directors to do something good with it as well. I wouldn't be mad if they had another go at the whole Hollywood film set kind of angle, you know, or, you know, something slightly different, but maybe took on the stuff that I think were the ideas that were a bit half-baked in Scream 3. I feel like maybe they could have another go at doing something along those lines, you know. If we graduated now to Hollywood again, or a movie set in some way, I think there could be something quite fun that these guys could do, you know.
And another possibility for the return of Schumacher.
Of course, and that, of course.
That is the only reason to make Scream 7.
Yeah. The cult of Ghostface, run by Pickled Stew in a prison cell in a glass box.
What if Stu has changed his name, got a little bit of work done, and now he's a movie studio mogul? He's a producer.
That would be good. That would be good. I mean, it'll never happen, but it would be good.
Let's not.
I can dream.
Maybe we can just be surprised if he ever comes back.
Hello, Sidney. Remember me?
Well, that's it for this episode of Hello, Sidney. We're done for now, but now that we're part of a franchise, guys, who knows when we might be back again?
We're also expendable.
We are.
Very much are.
Legacy characters here.
So hopefully we'll be back again, but if not, or until then, where can people find you and more of your work out there online? Louise?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram as @shiny_demon. I have a monthly show on Radio 3 called Sound of Gaming, which is all about video game soundtracks and an interview with a composer. So give that a listen if you want to calm down after the brutality of Scream 6.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Anna B. Demented. You can also listen to me weekly on the Final Ghost podcast, where I talk about horror movies. You can also find me and Mike talking about Succession on the Successionistas. And you can pre-order my book, Unlikable Female Characters, anywhere where you can buy books.
And you can find my podcast, The Evolution of Horror, which comes out weekly wherever you get your podcasts. Yeah, come and check out Successionistas with me and Anna. And you can find me on Twitter at The Movie Mike.
So this has been it for the 7th episode of Hello, Sidney. You can watch Scream 6 in cinemas now, and you can also find Scream 5 on most digital platforms, including Paramount Plus, Prime Video, and Apple Plus. Hello, Sidney is produced by Mike Munzer and Anna Bogutskaya for Paramount Pictures. The show is hosted by Louise Blaine, Anna Bogutskaya, and Mike Munzer, and it's edited by Mike Munzer.